What's going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this. We're going to be jumping into some more Warhammer Fantasy here with PancreasNoWork. We're going to check out Karl Franz, the Giga Chad of Total War Warhammer 3, in my opinion. He's one of my favorite generals, as the Empire is one of my favorite factions. Yeah, we're going to check out Karl Franz, Prince, Emperor, and so much more by PancreasNoWork. Links, as always, will be down below in the description to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to PancreasNoWork's channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoy this video as we go through it, be sure to go over to PancreasNoWork's channel, find the video, or click the link down below, give it a like, check out the content on this channel. Makes a lot of great content for 40k, fantasy, and some other universes. So yeah, show the man some love, hit that sub button if you enjoy his content. If you would like to join us when I'm doing these reactions live, as I am right now with my YouTube members, we'd love to have you guys come in and hang out and join our discussions. There's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. So if you want to take your sport to the next level, you can check all that stuff out. But yeah, with all that said, let's jump into the video. Again, this is Karl Franz, Prince, Emperor, and so much more by PancreasNoWork. Monitor on, volume is up. Let's go.
Oh, today's the day. Mark it down, whatever day this ultimately goes up, because now I'm finally forcing you all to listen to me talking about Karl Franz. Get ready to listen to me fanboy over the single best Warhammer Fantasy character, nay, the single greatest of all Warhammer characters.
I think he likes him.
A greater emperor than Biggie by miles, one whose charisma, intellect, bravery, and sheer force of will is all that keeps his realm from collapsing. If you think I'm going to give you an objective or reasonable point of view on this character, then you clearly haven't been a fan of this channel.
I think he likes him.
This man is my idol, my hero, my daddy, my favorite Warhammer character.
My daddy.
Let's go on a
Good
journey
Lord.
and discuss the greatest of them all. Ultramarines be damned.
I am Karl Franz, and I was born into this world, just like you.
Karl Franz Holzwig Schleistein was the son of Emperor Louis
That's a name.
I. If you don't mind me giving him the full credit he is due, he is also known as Karl Franz I, Protector of the Empire, Defier of the Dark, Emperor of the South, Emperor himself, Son of Emperors, Prince and Emperor, Elector Count of Reichland, Wielder of Galmaraz, Bearer of the Reichland Runefang, Son of Sigmar, the greatest statesman of the Old World, Rider of Deathclaw, and the greatest Emperor of the Warhammer universes. I only made some of those
Man's got more titles than Daenerys. Good Lord.
up, and I can assure you that each and every one of them is fully epic.
Yeah, for real.
Not quite as many titles as Cetra, but he's earned every single one of them. He was born in the year 2470 in the Imperial calendar. At least I assume so. The wiki said he was an infant in that year, and infinite usually applies to people that aren't one yet. But if I'm wrong and miss his age by an entire year, please let me know in the comments so I can flog myself for disrespecting the Prince and Emperor so grievously. Early in his infant life, signs already showed that he was destined for greatness. Now usually in a fantasy setting, this would manifest as a glowing aura around him, or a birthmark of his god, much like Valten was born with. For Karl Franz, it manifested by his father and guard being ambushed by beastmen in the forest. The Reichsguard were cut down as 3 Gorgons showed up despite their efforts, but a hail of arrows by the Wood Elves ensured Emperor and son survived.
Convenient.
You might be thinking they just got lucky, but come on now. The Wood Elves could give less of a shit if some random humans died of the beastmen. With the Empire's burgeoning industry and the Wood Elves being, well, Wood Elves, they'd probably welcome it. And yet they saved Franz, so they must have known this man was going to turn out to be something special. In fact,
like
one of the Wood Elves even
Balthazar's good
outright
too, yeah.
ignored the Emperor's thanks, looked Karl Franz square on, and called him the young Emperor before leaving. The signs pointing towards Karl's future greatness are neon bright and flashing like a police siren. His childhood beyond that is relatively unremarkable for a young noble, educated on courtly manners, politics, and all that fun Game of Thrones stuff. Interestingly enough, however, he did not want to be the Emperor. He saw how the position had been so taxing on his father and didn't want to go through such a thing. He also rather humbly just didn't think he was up to the challenge. But either way, his education must have been absolutely phenomenal because he would become one hell of a statesman in later life. Of course, the tale of his glory truly begins when he was elected to be the Emperor. And believe it or not, the best place to look for information on that is a short story written under the Total Warhammer flag. It's not entirely accurate to the original telling of his ascension to the Emperor, but truth be told, I prefer this version. It's a free PDF online and an enjoyable read, so go check it out. You got nothing to to lose. It starts with that aforementioned Beastman raid I was talking about earlier, and some poor innkeeper demands that they all get the hell out of his place of business before a Reichsguard member just manhandles him and throws the guy down the stairs. That probably wasn't the intention, but I laughed really hard at that. Anyways, election, year 2502. Aside from Boris Todbringer talking smack to his face, because of course he was, Karl, as the Prince of Reichland, was in the running to become emperor. A week after his father's funeral, it was time to suck it up and get to politicking, because there ain't no rest for the wicked, or the elector counts, as it were. As I said earlier, Karl didn't want the position, and let it be known that much like many of the other electors, he considered himself too young to become the emperor anyways. That being said, the initial round of voting didn't allow Todbringer a victory. 10 votes are needed to become emperor, and between him getting 8, Karl getting 4, and 3 guys abstaining for whatever reason, the votes were a bit muddled. So he verbally murdered Boris and then went to go kill some goblins. Karl Franz then proceeds to leap on top of an Arachnarok spider, decapitate a goblin shaman, and then slaughter the Arachnarok in one fell swoop.
Okay, so the man just pulling a Legolas, or in this universe, just pulling a Sigmar, you know? Obviously, yeah, you know, offspring of Sigmar, just jumping on a massive giant spider, killing the goblins, running it, and then decapitating the spider itself. That's light work, dude. You know what I'm saying? Everyone does that.
Man is 32 years old at this point. I'm 24 and my body already starts to creak if I stand up too quickly. Holy shit, Karl. An assassin also tried to kill him, but then the Green Knight of Bretonnia saved his life. You might think I'll complain about Bretonians getting any amount of limelight, but old Giles Le Breton over here is the only Bretonian I think worthy of any respect.
I agree. The Green Knight's the only gig Chad in the Bretonian army.
So it's cool. It helps that he's dead, and the only good Bretonian is a dead Bretonian. Don't worry, I didn't repeat that joke from another video, because that sentence wasn't a joke. Greeny tells him to talk to Leon Kerr, so Karl marches to Bretonnia alongside one of his fathers and indeed his old friends, Maximilian, the Elector Count of Ostland. He and Leon have a private meeting where Leon says he must become the Emperor. Karl again says he's not worthy, and Leon Kerr provides several good reasons as to why he is. After killing some orcs together and speaking further with the man, Karl finally resolves to try for the Imperial throne. Leon Kerr's depiction here almost makes me not hate him. Then I'll load up an Empire campaign and he captures Marienburg and I hate him all over again. To cut short what happens next, Karl Franz proceeds to display the finest politicking I have ever seen. He goes on a tour of the Empire and convinces every single Elector Count to vote for him, from the Halfling's chief to the rest of the provinces. While he won over Middenheim by giving one hell of a speech about unity, the rest of them get conned without actually getting conned. Franz promises all sorts of different reforms and taxes that sound like they're going to be undercutting each other's rivals, but in the end, everyone benefits. He doesn't tell a single lie either. He's just so goddamn smart he words his arguments in a way that shows the benefit to everyone and makes all the electors think that they're coming out on top. Also, one of the Elector Counts headbutts someone to death, which is entertaining, if nothing else. The election commences and Karl wins all but one vote. Maximilian is revealed to not have voted for him, and then when Karl bashes his head in with Galmaraz, it's revealed that, oh shit, Maximilian was a Zinch demon. Get bombed, you moron. Turns out the actual Maximilian has been dead for some amount of time. So now Karl's the Emperor. The vampires are getting ready to reveal themselves again. Norskin raiders are getting ready to sack Nordland for the 11th time that week. And Archaon is gonna start doing his thing soon. Good luck, bud. Well, thankfully our hero didn't need anything like luck. The Celestial College foresaw where the Norskins were gonna attack, and sure enough, before they could even reach land, they were obliterated by cannon fire. The few who did make landfall were impaled on spears and halberds, and Franz himself led the final charge that broke them. Since then, Karl continued his record of ass-kicking. He led a charge against Bretonnian knights in the same year he was elected and smashed them flat, which aside from being further proof of Bretonnian inferiority, is really funny within the context of that Total Warhammer novel. Karl, you have to be king. Also, I'm invading your lands now. He fought.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say, right? It was like, didn't they just have a conversation like 5 minutes ago where, you know, Bretonnia endorsed him, and now Bretonia's like, hey, bud, we're going to war.
Greenskins and won, and he one-shot a Chaos Champion with
that actually is like,
he may not be the best warrior in the world.
That's like canon too, because that happens in the game all the time. Every time you play at like Karl Franz and you do an Empire campaign, Bretonia's, they always come over there and start talking trash.
World, but he doesn't seem to have gotten that memo. Much the same as during his infancy, he was also once again assaulted by beastmen, but saved by wood elves. He had asked them for aid and they granted it, showing once again how kick-ass he is at politics that he got the wood elves to agree to help anyone. He was actually fighting this time on account of not being 2 months old, but a Cygor knocked him off his horse with a big old boulder. Yeah, that'll do anyone in. Only this time, instead of just anyone saving him, it was Orion. You know, the incarnation of one of the elven gods. Karl Franz has the gods themselves on his side, and don't think that's going away anytime soon. Anyways, yeah, Karl got bailed out by the Wood Elves once again. Orion did send him a gift though, a griffin egg, one that would go on to become his trusty mount Deathclaw. After that, he went on to kick more ass, like at Blackfire Pass, the same Blackfire Pass that Sigmar once routed the orcs and formed an alliance with the dwarves with. Kind of an important place in Warhammer Fantasy history. Only this time, Karl didn't have any dwarven help. Wave after wave of orcs charged the Imperial lines, and at first it went pretty well for the Empire. They just kind of pointed their guns forward and
like Mordor here.
Then a horde of boar-riding orcs smashed into the left flank, and things started going south. Deathclaw was wounded earlier during a battle between Karl and a giant, which Franzy Boy soloed by the way, so he was left footslogging it. Marius Leitdorf, the guy in charge of Averland who headbutted someone to death earlier before complaining about his milk having blood in it, managed to kill the boar the orc warlord was riding on.
What are these? These look like some kind of industrial pillars coming down from the sky. Like, what is this? Anyway.
The orc, understandably perhaps, was not the biggest fan of this, and crushed his throat. Marius Leitdorf is now dead. Rest in pieces, you mad bastard. May you hunt down all the halflings you can in Moore's Garden. Yeah, Marius Leitdorf hunted halflings for sport. Fun fact for you.
Nice.
Now it's up to Karl and the tattered
like
remnants of the Imperial Army. And you know what? I'll just spoil something for you now. There's no Wood Elves coming to save him this time. There's no dwarfs, there's no High Elves, not even Deathclaw. Just Karl Franz, what's left of his army, and a whole lot of orcs. Naturally, this meant absolutely nothing for him, because he had unlocked the part of his skill tree where he becomes unbreakable and his leadership never lowers. He engaged the orc leader in a duel, and the entire battlefield stopped to watch them. And for reference, this all happened in the middle of a massive cavalry charge. This duel was so badass that the orcs went, I'm taking a break from fighting to watch it go down.
That's pretty Giga Chad. You like, for real, when all the orcs are like, hold up, we gotta watch our war boss fight this human. Let's get out the popcorn.
And sure enough, Franz put up a hell of a fight, but was being slowly worn down by the orc's strength. He sent up a prayer to Sigmar, and Sigmar must have been feeling nostalgic that day because it was answered. Covered in a golden aura, Franz's injuries were entirely healed, and his weariness done away with. It doesn't specifically say he turned into a warrior prophesized by legend, but I'm showing Goku on screen right now anyway, so enjoy the mental image of Karl Franz, the legendary Super Saiyan. He screamed out Unberogans, the tribe Sigmar hailed from, and for just a moment, the orc warlord was struck with fear as visions of Sigmar himself rampaging through the same field as he did 2,000 years ago filled the mind of him and his entire army. And then Karl Franz brought Galmaraz straight down onto his skull. It bears mentioning that the name of the Warhammer translates to Skull Splitter. How fitting. With this, the orc horde was routed by fear, and Karl's name was spoken with even more pride throughout the Empire than it already was. Unless your name is Marcus Kruber. Then you bitch about how the Emperor keeps stealing your hats and raising taxes to buy more hats with. There's a few more things I feel are worth mentioning, but I couldn't figure out how to chronologically place them without killing the pace of the video, so here's a lightning round of fun facts. He reorganized the Empire and reinstated several provinces, such as Hawkland and Ostermark. Yeah, he created the empire as it stands in Total Warhammer. Shane Festus keeps spreading gonorrhea across his hard work, though. Can't say I'm a fan.
Yeah,
One time, a necromancer, evil spirit thing? Whatever the hell Drakenfels is, the dude used to boss the Chaos Gods around in old lore, so he's a badass. Tried to kill Karl Franz until a vampire with a very obnoxiously long name saved his life. There's this dude named Voland who leads a well-renowned mercenary company who's rumored to be Karl Franz's bastard son. This isn't really important, but the wiki page on his mercenary company says they're willing to be hired by anyone except for Bretonnians. Very based. Big fan of that one. He had kids with and later married one Maria Louise von Wolfen, a woman who was Karl's old childhood friend and nothing else. They had a son named Luitpold and a daughter named Alia. I don't know.
What did that say?
Married one Maria Louise von Wolfen, a woman who...
What did that say? Hold up. Children with his distant cousin. A
woman who was Karl's old childhood friend and nothing else. They had a son named Luitpold and a daughter named Alia. I don't know who that other woman is in this painting. Seriously, if anyone has anything on her, please let me know. There's Karl Franz, Mrs. Franz, Franz Jr. but a girl. Who are you, other
Sweet
woman?
Home Alabama.
Oh, and in first edition of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, he fucking died. Don't worry, he got better though. GW realized it couldn't kill Karl Zogen Franz, so they retconned that. Anyways, it's time to talk about the end times. You want to see how quickly I can breeze through this so we can stop talking about the end times? Karl went to work rallying the Empire while Balthasar Gelt raised the Auric Bastion, a fuck-off huge wall to keep out chaos. The Changeling tried to murder him, and Gelt did a bit of a goofy and tried to murder the wrong guy thinking he was the Changeling. When Mr. Supreme started raising zombies, he was outed as a necromancer, and the Auric Bastion fell away without the support of him and all of his wizards, as well as Imperial priests. So now Karl was stuck in the same situation he is in Warhammer 3, surrounded by idiots, and everyone's gunning for him. Nurgle was apparently the star of the end times, aside from Archaon, so after his forces killed Leoncor, they moved on to Karl Franz and Altdorf. The Glotkin, you know, that really fat bastard model with the two other dudes on top, were giving Karl the business in this capital city. So while Karl did all sorts of badass things like survive a several hundred feet fall after getting knocked off Deathclaw, he was slain by the Nurgle worshipping brothers. Of course, the Glotkin apparently turned their brains off that day and left him dying on the altar of Sigmar. You know, one of the few gods left actively opposing and
I'm sure that will have no further repercussions in the future, you know, just leave Karl Franz dying on the altar of Sigmar, who he's, you know, supposedly bloodline relative of, you know, in the distant future from Sigmar. It's fine.
threatening chaos. Karl figured if it worked once, you might as well try again, and called to Sigmar for aid. Sigmar once again said, "Bet, assholes," and empowered Karl Franz with the magical wind of heaven. Shortly afterwards, the Glotkin brothers were little more than a trio of flies in a jar in Nurgle's garden. I'm being serious, Nurgle put them in a cum jar for failing to take over Altdorf. Then Karl Franz purged Altdorf of chaos and went to work with his newfound power, sassing Vlad von Karstein and all sorts of other cool things. Except actually, I'm lying to you, because despite GW writing in lore where Karl says he doesn't know what's empowering him, it's actually revealed later it was Sigmar in his body the entire time. Karl Franz died in Altdorf. Why no, the end times weren't being written as they were going along. The end times were a respectful send-off to Warhammer Fantasy, the original setting that put Games Workshop on the market. Thank God for Total Warhammer. Genuinely, it has done more towards bringing Warhammer to the mainstream eye than anything GW has ever done. I mean, the Immortal Empires trailer alone looks like GW dropped the Horus Heresy trailer, and then Creative Assembly said to hold my beer. Warhammer Fantasy isn't profitable. Kiss the sugar-freest part of my ass. I should probably move on. As of Age of Sigmar, I'm dropping the pretenses, he's the Celestin Prime. I simply do not care if there is anything that could counteract this belief. He is the leader of the Stormcast Eternals because he is too goddamn amazing for anyone else to do it. That's what I understand. You might.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about Age of Sigmar, but so far what I've gotten into with Age of Sigmar, it is a little out there where Sigmar literally just recreates a whole new reality and humanity, yada yada, and then chaos invades again, and then he goes away for a while or whatever and comes back with fantasy versions of Space Marines that are still getting their asses kicked, and apparently according to this, Karl Franz is the leader of them.
I'd say, but they've never
I guess Karl Franz would be like, you know, the Primarch.
Any hints besides saying the Celestin was a king in ages past, and Karl wasn't a king, he was an emperor. But allow me to do some disabasing of any arguments that might be presented before me. 1. Sigmar has been referred to as a king, and the Empire as a kingdom, therefore making Karl eligible for the seat of Celestin Prime. 2. Balthasar Gelt is back as a Stormcast, and I believe his chief rival in the old colleges of magic is as well, so there's no reason to think Karl wouldn't be back as one. 3. He's definitely done enough heroism to earn a spot as a Stormcast. And 4. He is the Celestin Prime. You are arguing with Karl Franz's #1 simp over whether or not Karl Franz became a demigod, my dear straw man. Do you really think I'm going to accept anything less for him than being the leader of the Stormcast Eternals? I am 110% biased in this matter, and I don't care in the slightest. And if anyone has the balls to suggest someone like Leoncor as the Celestin Prime, then there is a special place reserved in Shyish just for you and your shit opinions. I am not getting defensive, I am getting offensive. You could give me the single largest list of factual reasons why he isn't the Celestin Prime, and I will look through it and proceed to ignore it. Anyways, now that we've looked through his lore, I think now's a good time to compare him to what I believe is his closest counterpart in 40k, Guilliman. Here's your march for
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. I was going to compare him to Guilliman when he was saying that he is the leader of you know, fantasy space marine stormcasts or whatever I think is what you call them. I don't know what their name is, but yeah, I was gonna say like, oh, so he's like the Primarch now, and he's essentially gonna be like the Gilliman of this setting. I still think the coolest faction, the Tomb Kings. I like Tomb King too. They're one of my favorite factions. They're in my top 5 in the Total War Warhammer games.
Month, everyone. Both are unrivaled statesmen, both are in charge of an empire that is going through some stuff to say the very least, and both of them, while not being the absolute best warriors in the respective universes, can put the hurt on anyone who tries to take them on. They're champions of their respective gods and indeed have the favor of each of them, and they generally try the diplomatic route before breaking out the beatsticks. And as of Godblight, they've even both been directly empowered by their gods. Now, as you should be aware of, I like Karl Franz. I love Karl Franz. I'm not saying I
never would have guessed that.
I'm just saying that if he was real, I'd throw myself in front of a moving train at the slightest nod of his head. But perhaps an explanation is due. Why do I love Francie boy so damn much? Well, let's start with something we can all agree on. Every voice line he has is perfect. I can't say it's like music to my ears because when I click on him in the campaign map and he says, "Summon the Elector Counts," it fills my brain with more dopamine than any song ever has. Shout out to Peter DeJersey for giving the best vocal performance there's ever been. But as for Karl himself, and that's him with a capital H by the way, there's many reasons still. 1. I like Warhammer characters who have something resembling common sense. I enjoy the settings being so incredibly filled with the absolute biggest monsters. Fine, don't get me wrong, like the Death Watch who stopped any ad being properly born because Xeno bad regardless of any benefits it would have brought. More like the Based Watch, fellas. But that also means that when someone comes around with a decent head on their shoulders like Gilliman or Karl, they're automatically in the running for me to like them purely based on that. And Karl has one hell of a head on his shoulders. He can smooth talk his way out of the Rainbow Dash jar. I should know because my miniature of him speaks to me at night and tells me what videos I should work on the next day. Squabbling electors or dwarves and elves arguing doesn't matter. He'll get everyone talking to each other. And yet
I think he has a little crush on Karl Franz. I'm not sure, but I'm leaning in that direction.
Like I said, he's not a con man. He's something that's rarer than all the gold, diamonds, and out-of-production Warhammer minis on the planet. An honest politician working with your best interests in mind. He works with all sorts of different people in the Empire, the cults of Ulrich and Sigmar, as well as other religions, representatives from the common man, other nobles. And once again, it doesn't matter if you're a human, an elf, a dwarf, or an ogre. Whatever you are, if you're willing to sit down and hash things out, Karl Franz can make things work. And if you aren't willing to make things work, Karl Franz is going to put Galmarez to work. He's a warrior extraordinaire, and while not the best combatant with the absolute best armor, he can fight alongside the best of them and pull his weight. If there's a
I mean, in the Total War Warhammer 3 campaign, like when you get him with Galmarez and Deathclaw and some of the other like legendary items from his quests, he hits like an absolute truck. Like he like 1 or 2 shots other bosses, depending on the level, of course, but it's pretty insane.
Battle that requires his attention, the only reason he won't be at the head of a Reichsguard charge is because he's already flying above on Deathclaw fighting something else. He's a brilliant commander as well, which is another thing that makes him stand above the average beatstick character in Warhammer. And yet to counteract that, he's not a complete and utter Mary Sue. As you've seen by now, he's lost his fair share of battles, and things don't always go right for him. And not everyone even likes him. Boris Todbringer calls him an upstart child, but he picks himself back up and gets back at it. There's no massive temper tantrum because he got his ass handed to him. He accepts that he lost, plans
He's one of the better duelists in the game. He's super
and of course, he has the divine favor of Sigmar backing him. And you know what? I like that about him. Especially in Warhammer, I don't think there's enough of that shit going around for the good guys. It's just constant showcasing of the Chaos Gods empowering their servants, and it's very nice to see that sometimes the good guys can get a boost like that. And Karl certainly puts it to good use, beating greenskins.
That is one thing that it seems to happen. I mean, I guess it's happening a little bit more in the 40k universe as well, where the Emperor's starting to, you know, hand out more miracles. But yeah, it does seem like, you know, Chaos has the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but they've cornered the market essentially on being able to just hand out buffs at a whim and empowering, you know, their champions whenever they want to at the right times for their benefit. And the good guys don't really seem to get that enough in a lot of the stories that I know and have read, and both in fantasy and 40k. So I have to agree with them. It is kind of nice to see, you know, that Sigmar here, you know, actually cares and is getting into the mix sometimes. Yeah, Monopoly, yeah.
And cast lords to death with the power of the Holy Spirit. He's never once wavered in his duty either, no matter how frequently he comes to blows with more mundane threats like orcs or more chaotic threats, as it were. He never falters or becomes corrupted. He just keeps at it. There's no risk of chaotic corruption with him, only the risk that whatever chump that tries to take him on is going to stain his armor. He is genuine in his motivations as well. He works tirelessly because he believes in his cause of the righteousness of his country, and that what he does is vital to hold back the darkness for just another day. He doesn't hate half of his empire because of half the people in it being idiots. He cherishes his country. And while he's admitted in Total Warhammer and elsewhere he's done some dark things, he does it out of a genuine desire to improve the world and because it's all he can see working. I'm repeating myself a bit between this and the Empire do or don't, but it's doubly applicable with Franz. Perhaps the biggest reason of all, he does all of this without being some kind of superhuman demigod or anything like that.
True.
Well, Sigmar has blessed him in the past.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say, right, like, he does get empowered by Sigmar at sometimes, but he is essentially still just a human with, I mean, he's got Galmaraz, right, you know, which is, you know, a legendary mythical weapon. So, I mean, that does make a difference. And obviously, he's riding a huge, powerful griffin. That does make a difference too. But in the end, he is still just a human compared to any of the Primarchs who are, you know, 10, 12 foot tall, genetic perfection enhanced with demon warp essence. You know what I'm saying? So, like, there's quite a difference.
Like I've said, that was more of a temporary power boost than anything else. Otherwise, he's just an ordinary man called to greatness, doing his best to survive in the fustercluck of a world that is Warhammer Fantasy. Wielding nothing with faith, steel, and gunpowder, he fights to survive and keep his nation alive with nothing but sheer willpower and grit. And finally, the real reason that's actually beyond all other things. Look at that jawline, oh my god. This man is handsome beyond compare. I'm sure you've all seen the meme, you know, this is peak male form and then it's something stupid. Well, this is peak human form. A perfect world is a world filled with nothing but Karl Franz as far as the eye can see. Anyways, do or don't Karl Franz? Do. That's the segment. This entire video has been lore positives for the man, and I'm not giving you lore downsides to this man. They don't exist. There are none. He's perfect. As for gameplay, he's an all-rounder lord who can move fast, hit hard, and take a bit of a hit. Don't put him against the cheesiest ward-save lord, and it'll do just fine. His campaign is currently in a rough spot, but that's the Empire as a whole rather than Karl Franz.
Yes, that is true. Like, if you're playing anyone in the Empire, you very quickly are surrounded by bad guys, and it can be rough to get out of.
There is Karl Franz.
But that's why you have guns and tanks.
It's the greatest statesman of the old world, and many more plaudits I could give him. Plaudits, that's a fun word. Thanks for the new word, Andy. I hope I've enlightened you all to this wonderful man. May he guide you ever onwards to glory. Thank you, of course, to my wonderful channel members. You were the Burgomeisters to my Elector Count. I couldn't compare myself to Karl Franz, of course, so that's what we're going with.
Of course.
If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way.
Alright, so yeah, there we go. That was Karl Franz, Prince Emperor, and so much more by PancreasNoWork. Links, as always, will be down below in the description to the original video and to PancreasNoWork's channel without my commentary and reaction, etc., etc. So if you enjoyed this video of his, please go over there, hit that like button, check out his channel, check out his content. If you enjoy the stuff that he makes, hit that sub button, you know, show the man some love. He definitely deserves it. So I mean, yeah, didn't have to convince me. I already like Karl Franz. He's one of my top dudes, and he's my favorite Empire general for sure. I'm trying to think of who might be my overall favorite general in Total War Warhammer games. It might just be him. Oh, excuse me. I like Balthazar. I don't know what his name is. I like the high elf general that is based with dragons. You know, he gets his own dragon and he's got a lance and he's pretty insane. He's another really good general that I like. I like the Croxagore guy for the lizard men. I like the new Jade Emperor dragon for Cathay. I like the Serena for Kislev. I can't think of her name off the top of my head right now. Those are probably my favorite ones overall. I like Cetra with the Tomb Kings. But Karl Franz might be just my favorite one overall, just because I just like a general that can hit like a truck, you know. I do like having magic stuff, but I mean, yeah, wizards for that, and the emperor, like, or the empire I should say, not the emperor. Like literally with the college of wizards, you have access to every kind of magic there is, basically. So I mean, pick whatever wizard you want to have in your army and there you go. So you don't really necessarily have to have a general that's able to have magical capabilities, because, you know, with the empire you can just have a wizard that does whatever you want. And yeah, I mean, like I said, when you get all of his legendary gear, he hits like an absolute truck, you know. And it's also great that he's a flying unit with Deathclaw, so I mean, it gives him a lot of versatility. And I just in general like the empire. I like their versatility. They're not necessarily great at any one in particular thing, but they're good at all the various facets that they have. They have good, you know, their gun units are good. Some of the newer gun units are pretty insane. I don't know what they're called, but they have got like some unit that's like basically snipers, and you just tear stuff up. The new land ships are pretty dope. So yeah, I like the empire. I like Karl Franz. You don't have to tell me anymore. I was mostly really kind of watching this video to, I guess, getting more in depth in his lore. So it was the whole story about him getting endorsed by Bretonnia only to then go to war with Bretonnia was funny, because that's like literally canon as to what happens in the actual game itself. Bretonnia is always, yeah, annoying that way. But the story that was cool was, you know, him essentially getting empowered and turned into a Super Saiyan while fighting the Orc war boss, and then yeah, clubbing him with Galmaraz and winning the day, you know. So, but yeah, great video by PancreasNoWork. Like I said, check out his stuff, give him some love, hit that sub button, etc. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and the channel grow. I've been really enjoying getting into the Warhammer Fantasy stuff and learning more about the fantasy side of Warhammer and getting into these characters. And I mean, there's now also 3 different time periods essentially for me to get into in Warhammer Fantasy, right? There's the old world, the end times, and now Age of Sigmar. So I've got a bunch of lore to catch up on, you know, with all of that stuff, as I also continue going on with the 40k stuff. So but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. You know, if you would like to join us as I do these reactions live, which I'm doing right now with my YouTube members, we'd love to have you guys come in and hang out and join our discussions before, during, and after. There's a join button underneath the video, as well as the link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits that I have to offer. So if you want to take your sport to the next level, you can check those out. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Consider leaving a like and a sub if you enjoyed this video. It helps me and the channel grow. Lets the YouTube algorithm gods know that you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see some more. So yeah, hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day. See you on the next one.